Welcome to That Davis Show, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Matt Connor, the editor for Arrowhead Addict. Make sure you follow him at Matt Connor AA. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I was just telling you before, this has been one of my favorite teams from years past. Also, just to let you know, and I want you to spread this in Kansas City, about two and a half years ago, no, probably two and a half years ago, I coined the phrase, and you just saw Madden use it, baby goat for Patrick Mahomes. I'm not lying. I have it on tape if the proof is needed to show that. Because I don't know if it's used over out in Kansas City. All right. But when Madden, when Madden did it, it was like, oh, okay, now, because it's traveling. But that's around my shows. We usually refer to him as baby goat. All right.
We'll take it.
Okay. So listen, I want to ask you this. One of the better players on your team and on your defense, Tyrann Mathieu, what's going on with his deal? I know that Brett Veach said definitely they want to keep him and Mathieu wants to be there, but the money's not there. At the end of the season, with some of the money that are coming off the books and, of course, signing Orlando Brown to an extension, will they be able to extend Tyrann Mathieu?
Yeah, I think they have to get real creative with Frank Clark. Frank Clark is the cornerstone defensive end they brought over to really kind of lead Steve Spagnuolo's defense when they made the big switch a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. The result was a Super Bowl and two consecutive Super Bowl runs. But, Clark, no player in football is more expensive of any non-quarterback than Frank Clark this year. And he has a cap hit of like $25.8 million. It's crazy, and it goes up by $2 million for each more season. So that contract has to be addressed. It's really silly. Only 5 players in football in general make more money than Frank Clark this year. So they've got to address that in the offseason.
Is he worth it? Is he worth that amount?
No. I mean, and that's been the common complaint in Kansas City. Now, look, Clark is a machine in the playoffs, a machine. During the Super Bowl run, he had 5 sacks in 3 games. He had 3 sacks in 3 games last year. But during the regular season, it's kind of an inconsistent burst. So, it's one of those, well, what do you trade for a Super Bowl? Every team tries to get there. You take your lumps with it. But, look, Matthew says he wants to be there. Brett Veach says he wants him there. If 2 people want to get married, they're going to get married and work out the particulars along the way. The only downside is Matthew is an emotional vehicle for the Chiefs. So, he's the kind of guy, I think we both know people like this. It's like when they're in the room and excited and motivated, the whole room is charged. But man, if they're not into it, it affects the whole room. And he's that kind of emotional lightning rod. And so if I'm Brett Veach, I don't want to play chicken with that kind of guy. I want to make sure he stays positive, motivated, in that secondary. And if that means, figuring out a way to pay him sooner than later, that's what I would do.
Look, it's funny. Here in Chicago, we have Roquan Smith. And with the Colts, you had Leonard that just got signed that nice contract for the interior linebacker, off-the-ball linebacker, right? When you saw that Jamal Adams deal, how did it make you feel knowing that the Kansas City Chiefs will probably have to match, if not top that, to keep Mathieu?
Yeah, the hard part there with Tyrann is that, he's going to be 30 soon. He's about a year away from turning 30. And, of course, we all, if you're older than that in real life, it feels silly to say when you're 30, you're, done. But, this is a young man's game. And so it's going to be hard. I think Matthew will age well at the position. So I don't think the Chiefs should be that frustrated by it. He's so cerebral as a player and smart and instinctual about what's happening that even if he lost some athleticism, his instincts would allow him to still know what routes to jump, know what's coming, and so I think that could help him age well with a deal. But, Jamal, that Jamal deal is certainly expensive for a safety. There's few positions you can get by with actually going pretty cheap, and safety is one of them in the NFL. So, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Look, while we're on defense, and since, like I said, I have an affinity for the Chiefs organization,
Yeah.
who's your favorite Chiefs defensive player of all time?
I mean, if you ever watch Derrick Thomas play the
Yeah.
game, 7 sacks in one game, is that right? Is the record?
Yeah.
And
The bend on that man was ridiculous. The
I
speed and the bend, it was crazy.
there's been nothing like him at linebacker. I mean, ever. I think he's maybe the best all time linebacker. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. And then of course he's taken too early, which tends to make us remember someone even more fondly when you can read maybe further production into their career that wasn't really there.
Right.
I mean, he's on the all-time list for good reason. I'm not trying to say that we're remembering him more fondly than he was, but I think that only adds to the legacy that he was taken earlier than it's not like he fell off and then kind of dangled in the league for a couple of years. He was certainly an amazing force, that's for sure.
Look, sticking with the edge, and this one is a down lineman instead of an edge rusher. What about Chris Jones playing the edge now since the team brought in Jared Reed? I know he's doing yoga and Pilates talking about bending to get that bend. Now, I know he's going to be moved around, but what do you expect to get out of him playing the edge? And also with him playing the edge, is this perhaps down the line saying that Frank Clark may not even be there and you're kind of looking to get some of that production out of Chris Jones?
Could be. That's a great question. And I think Chiefs fans are waiting the season to see what those results will be and how that will work out. I'll say this, the Chiefs have 2 guys who have been complaining for years, wanting to do what they're doing right now. And Chris Jones is one of them. Chris Jones has said from the outset, I want to rush from the edge. I want to rush from the edge. But he's so good from the interior as a disruptor that, that's what you go with. And so this year the Chiefs are finally giving him what they want. And so on that level, Chris Jones now has to follow through. It's like, all right, you've been talking big for years about wanting time on the edge. Now what are you going to do with it? The other one is Orlando Brown on the other side. He's like, I want to play left tackle. I want to play left tackle. The Chiefs trade for him, bring him in, put him at left tackle. It's like, all right, you've complained that you want to follow in your dad's footsteps, be this franchise left tackle. Now go be what you say you want to be. So that's going to be big for both of these Chiefs linemen on both sides of the ball is, hey, you said you want it. Let's see what you've got.
Matt Connor, editor of Arrowhead Addict. Follow him at Matt Connor AA. Listen, I want to stay on Orlando Brown. Look, again, I love me some Patrick Mahomes. All right. Don't get it twisted. I mean, I love me some Patrick Mahomes. All right. And to see what happened at the Super Bowl with that offensive line, it was disrespectful in the streets, to say the least. To see my man having to rush backwards to another state, basically.
Yeah.
When you're bringing in an Orlando Brown Jr., who primarily played right tackle with the Baltimore Ravens until, of course, he switched it the last year there. But they're a run-heavy offense. And I know he wants to prove that he can be a pass blocker, but what are your expectations as far as him taking that role? Like you just said, you want it, now that you got it, and you're not just, covering up for Joe Schmo. And I mean, it's not to say he was covering up for Joe Schmo before with Lamar Jackson, but this is the league, basically, when you're talking about Patrick Mahomes. What are your expectations of what he can do at that left tackle, especially thinking about the money he's going to get on this extension coming up?
Right. You brought up all the same particulars that have us watching very carefully. Can he make the switch? He's always said he wanted to make the switch. Credit to him that he filled in for Ronnie Stanley so well last year when he was switched to the left side, and he won a Pro Bowl. You can say what you want about the Pro Bowl and being a popularity contest, whatever, but Brown's made it 2 of the last 3 years. The Chiefs chased Trent Williams very publicly, so he was clearly top of their list. But they also then went straight to Orlando Brown after that and traded a first-round pick to do it. If there's any question in my mind as to whether or not Brown can live up to these expectations, I'm not the guy whose job is on the line to make that call, right? So in a sense, I've got to trust that a Super Bowl winning front office who they've put all their eggs in Orlando Brown basket. They got rid of a decent guy in Eric Fisher. They traded a first-round pick to get him. they're clearly all in. So if they're pushing their chips into the middle of the table on Orlando Brown, I've got to say any doubts I have are probably ill-founded. And I think he's going to work out just fine. But it will be interesting to see that switch in Andy Reid is pass heavy, man. So it's going to be it's one side to the other, but he's up for the challenge. He says he loves it. By all accounts, he's doing great.
Look, sticking with the offensive line, someone near and dear to us, our Bears fans' hearts, Cal Long went down early. You also have the return of Laurent Duvernay-Tardif with a broken hand. How's that offensive line going to shake out from left tackle to right tackle? Who do you expect to be the starters when everyone is healthy?
Yeah, I think even when healthy, you're going to have two veteran studs on the left. You're going to have Orlando Brown. You're going to have Joe Thuney, who was the big free agent splash acquisition there. And then you're going to have three rookies. You're going to have Creed Humphrey in the middle. He was their second-round draft pick out of Oklahoma. Creed's blocked for the best young quarterbacks in football, coming out of Oklahoma,
right.
Last 3 years. And he didn't allow a sack the last 2 seasons at Oklahoma. So you got a great new guy in the middle. And then Trey Smith. They grabbed Trey Smith out of Tennessee in the 6th round, who fell several rounds because of medical concerns. Trey coming out of college, he came with medical reports of he'd had some blood clot issues in his lungs in years past in Tennessee. So he was always this 1st or 2nd round grade. And a lot of teams, because they couldn't get clear medical pictures in the pre-draft season because of COVID and all that stuff, right, it was hard to get up close. And unless you're going to sign off on a guy, and clear his medical. So the Chiefs took that chance in the 6th round. And I'm telling you now, the guy's a total mauler. He's better than any other rookie along the line, and he's a 6th rounder. Chris Jones came out yesterday. He's like, hey, Trey Smith is a total stud. And so he's going to be a bruiser. Whether Kyle Long was healthy or not, whether Duvernay-Tardif was healthy or not, doesn't matter. Trey Smith locked that job down from the first part of training camp and looks the part. And then at right tackle, you have Lucas Niang, and he was a rookie they took in the 3rd round last year, and he opted out. So he's back to fight for Mitchell Schwartz's old spot on the right-hand side, and I think the rookie wins out. So I think it's going to be veteran, and then 3 rooks in week 1 against Myles Garrett and the Browns. It's going to be something to watch, that's for sure.
Hey, you better protect Baby Goat. That's all I'm letting you guys know. The protection better be right for him, because I would hate for something to happen for him. Getting away from the line and going out, Mecole Hardman is going to have to step up now. And it's not that like Sammy Watkins was killing it. You know what I'm saying? But now you're really dependent on him to be that number 2 receiver. What are your expectations of him this season?
It's anyone's guess, honestly. Hardman says he's up for the job. The problem with Hardman is that he can't create much separation on his own. He's not physical. Route running is a little iffy. And so, Hardman has world-class speed, almost as good as Tyreek. And so if Andy Reid is creating plays for Hardman, he can be that threat, that great, put him out in space, give him a deep target, away from traffic, whatever. The problem is that the Chiefs need someone like Sammy Watkins who can be that like physical receiver, create separation in traffic, runs like a running back with the football once he's got it. The problem was all the health concerns, and so they let Watkins go, and he went for 1 year, $5 million to the Ravens. I'm going to miss him. I mean, he wasn't healthy. That was really frustrating. But even having that option there just made defenses stay honest on Kelsey and Hill. Hardman's going to have a real tough time. Remember this: they drafted Hardman. Remember, right before the draft 2 years ago, all those allegations came out about Tyreek Hill, right?
Right.
So no one even knew if he was even going to play another down of football at the time. And so the Chiefs trade up for really another Tyreek Hill. Now that Tyreek is still there and entrenched and even getting better to spot, Hardman kind of doesn't have room to do everything that Hardman could do, and he can't do what they need him to do. So it was an odd, they had to get someone who could do that. in case Tyreek can't do it. But now they've got a carbon copy. I don't know what to do there.
Would it be a guy that you could perhaps see being moved later on? I mean, in the future?
I think so. I think even if the Chiefs just let him leave, I think he'd be an amazing free agent gamble for another team to bring in and try to play that Tyreek Z role in a Reed style offense.
Well, apologies.
Yeah.
How is it? And you mentioned all the trouble and what happened with Tyreek Hill, the abuse and everything you heard from college, and then the stuff that happened when they were in the airport or whatever when he was recorded. How is it? Because I looking as a Bears fan and thinking about, for instance, at one point trading for Deshaun Watson, right? And it was like, you know what? I really don't want to do the Ben Roethlisberger thing when I'm rooting for somebody. And I'm not the type of person that likes to be in people's business, but there's some things that I won't say are unforgivable, but I don't want it. I would prefer if that wasn't on my team. How is it rooting for such a fantastic receiver who, like you said, you're talking about a track guy that that you're looking at as being kind of a gadget guy who's turned himself into an elite receiver, an undersized guy that high points the hell out of the ball, right? Like that's one of the crazy things. Like he gets up to be undersized. It reminds me of Steve Smith Sr., you know what I'm saying? To have an undersized receiver that it's not a hindrance that he's short, you know what I'm saying? Because how it can happen. But how is it root for him, because he's a phenomenal player to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those allegations were proven false, right?
Okay.
That his girlfriend was out to get him, extort him for money.
I didn't know that.
The Chiefs played it patient, which was really at the time the franchise was taking hits for sticking by him when, nowadays it's so common to, here comes the PR issues and let's get rid of the guy and distance ourselves as much as possible. Remember, the Chiefs went through that a few months before with Kareem Hunt. Yeah. And they cut him as quickly as they could when they found out he's been lying to the team for a long time about his involvement, and then a video proved otherwise. In this instance, the Chiefs chose to stick by him, and they said, look, we're going to let this play out. I think the team knew all along that there were two sides to the story, and that Tyreek was intent on letting the legal process play out and get all their ducks in a row. And then when they did, if they found out that his, at the time, fiance had been trying to extort him because she knew he was leaving her. Mm-hmm. And so she was trying to get her money while she could.
Okay. And
it turned into that whole situation. He does have a problematic background. He did get arrested in college. He went to prison and served time for that. By all accounts, now he's a changed man. So yeah, I mean, it's. So
you don't think about it. Just forget. I
don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't at this point. Although I do think there's something to be said for hey, employing character. These guys are role models, whether they want to be or not. And so, I don't think it's unimportant. In Tyreek's particular situation, I think the headlines got out in front of their reality.
Got you. Looking at the rest of the AFC West, I mean, usually when we do these previews, there's much to talk about, but there's really nothing to talk about since Denver doesn't have a quarterback. And I mean, Justin Herbert's phenomenal, but I think that seems really maybe a season 2 away from threatening the Chiefs, if that. But what's your forecast for the rest of the AFC West? Because I'm sure you have the Chiefs winning that division.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think everyone has the Chiefs winning pretty easy money if you want to bet on that one. I will say, the Chargers lost by 3 in Justin Herbert's first game. Remember, it was going to be Tyrod Taylor. He gets injured, and Herbert starts like right then and there immediately. And it's in week 2, and the Chargers only lose by 3. And if I remember right, no, that game was at LA. And then the Chargers won in the last game of the season, but that was when Andy Reid was resting all of his starters. But I mean, the Chargers looked downright dangerous last year, head to head. And I mean, I don't believe that they're going to win, but I think they could be sneakily better. If they protect Herbert, that's the deal, right? That O-line has been atrocious.
They invested in it
for years, and they did invest in it. So, if Rashawn Slater or some others can be, what they need him to be up front. They got a new coach. I mean, there's just a lot of unknown variables there. They get Derwin James back in the secondary. I mean, that guy's a force.
Right.
Anytime you've got someone named Bosa up front, it'll be interesting. It'll be real interesting, I think.
Look, I have 3 more questions, but I want to just get this one out the way. Yep. And I haven't asked anybody else this question because I don't think their team's necessarily going to make it to the Super Bowl. But what's your Super Bowl prediction, since I think I'm a pencil in KC as the team coming from the AFC?
I think Kansas. I think the road runs through Kansas City. I think Aaron Rodgers in this final Green Bay season is just going to be a motivated man to watch. And I think he and Mahomes are the only two play. Football's a team game. Mm-hmm. Like in the NBA and maybe even Major League Baseball, it's more individual. One guy can carry the load, whatever. In football, I think that's impossible to do, except when you have a quarterback who is so far beyond even other quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. I think Mahomes is that guy, and I think Aaron Rodgers is that guy. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a man possessed this year, and the Packers were already good. So it's kind of hard for me to not pick those two teams to go all the way. The Bucks, I'm just not in. I think they're good. I think they're very, very good. But I'm going to go Packers Chiefs.
That's a good one. I would love to see the original edition and the remix battle each other, basically. Looking at how the Chiefs waited the season, really, we know he played the last game of the season, his first year, Patrick Mahomes. How should the Bears go about bringing Justin Fields along, since Matt Nagy was with the Chiefs that season? And also, what are your thoughts on the Bears this upcoming season?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. Do you feel like the momentum is getting ahead of Fields a little bit? I mean, like the expectations, even Trevor Lawrence has to be looking at Justin Fields going, gosh, how do you get all this press? Because I'm like 1-1 over here, first pick, first round. And no one's fawning over Trevor Lawrence the way that everyone seems to be fawning over Justin Fields, let alone to be Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, other guys who are even picked in front of him. So,
yeah.
A little bit there is
Bears. Bears have a little cachet in these streets, just so
right, exactly. Exactly, right. I love the fit. I loved watching Fields in college. I think a lot of teams made it way too complicated and overthought. Hey, there's the guy. Go get him, and make it happen. So I'd love to see it. But man, I'd throw him right in. Honestly, I'd throw him right in because how much do you want to watch Andy Dalton? How much does anyone want to watch Andy Dalton? I think you can get away with that kind of like long torch passing when you have proven and stable leadership, and you can't say that about anyone in the Bears right now, right? I mean,
right. Yes, yes, facts. That's facts. No, you're not disrespecting anybody. That's facts right now.
So if a Belichick can do it, an Andy Reid can do it, other than that, the Green Bay got away with it when they switched from Favre to Rodgers,
right? And they're getting away with it right now. Although they're also taking major PR hits and doing so because they're not even getting it right. So right.
Rather than looking at the Chiefs as some model of how to do it, I think it's the anomaly. I think the Chiefs are, wow, that worked for them, and kudos to them for, Alex Smith was a model citizen, knowing he was losing his job. Patrick Mahomes was a model citizen, even though he was waiting on a job. Andy Reid, players coach. I mean, all the planets aligned to make that happen. So, I just don't know that it's a mimicable model.
Look, I host the Bears podcast for NBC Sports Chicago also, and I was on there, and our Bears insider Adam Hogue, we both realized that we had the same thought. He said he had talked about it in the past, but this one hit me a couple of days ago, right? Knowing what we know about Patrick Mahomes, right? In all fairness, shouldn't the Chiefs have just started him at the end of that rookie season? Because you probably would have another Super Bowl by now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were honoring Alex for a first season. I really do. And, you've watched Alex be a pretty stand-up person in Washington. I mean, kind of wherever he's gone, he's been a civic leader, a team leader, whatever. And so he and Andy were pretty close. I think it was an honoring Alex season. And I just, even if that cost him a win, I think it did.
Oh yeah, you can't. Now you can't give Super Bowls away for Alex Smith. And I mean, now he was balling that year, but you can't give him. I mean, because think about it. Now you've been to 2 and you have 1, but you could have been to 3 and had 2. It sounds a lot better.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Who knows if they make the same decision in hindsight? But Alex got them all the way there. I think they were just riding the train that got them there and honoring a guy at the same time.
Matt, I definitely appreciate it. Everybody follow Matt at Matt Connor AA. Matt, you have a terrific day.